Welcome to the DriveLife Podcast. Right, welcome to another edition of the podcast. The usual crowd of Mark and Sean joining us today, but we have Paul from JPC with us today. So welcome to the podcast.
Welcome, thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So it's kind of towards the end of the year, so things have been less hectic than the last few months, I suppose. There's still been a good few events and things to talk about. So as usual, we'll start there. So Mark, what's been going on in the SCUK world?
Yeah, it still feels like it's been a busy few months, hasn't it? On the SCUK side of stuff. What's been going on? Well, I guess generally Redline magazines have begun to be delivered to full members.
Yep.
We discussed that on the last podcast with Mark at Redline, so that's begun to happen now. Had a great reception from that and the content that we've had in there from our Europe tour. And what I would say on that is, so we actually, when users register, we historically didn't ask for their postal address. So we've been emailing everybody asking, please fill it out. We've had maybe 2/3 fill it out, so just a shout out to the members who haven't. You are missing out on receiving a completely free copy of the magazine. So
you can still buy it in WH Smith's though as well.
Yes, you can. Yeah, so it's still available on Redline's site, on WH Smith's. WH Smith's is the retail outlet, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you're pretty geeky like me, I basically got my copy through the post, but I couldn't wait for it, so I actually still went to WH Smith's and bought it the day it came out as well.
I happened to be in a WH Smith and they didn't have it; they'd sold out. So that's a good thing
Sorry, I shouldn't have bought all
some
of them.
ways.
Sorry.
But yeah, you bought all the copies, and obviously flicking through and seeing your own car in print is pretty awesome. So that was a little bonus for me.
I don't think you were alone in buying it from Smiths. I know some of Josh and a few others did as well. So.
Sean, have you arranged to go in and sign all the copies as well next time?
I wasn't in it. I don't think my car was in it anyway, but it was just nice. It's nice to see it in the flesh. We've been talking about it for some time, haven't we? So
yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. A good achievement, a good milestone for the club for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, we're excited to continue to work with Redline. We're really happy with how the first set of content features came out. That was mainly based around our Europe tour. Was that first article? But yeah, full members, if you've not filled out your address yet, we'll be sending out one more batch of this edition in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. So you've not got long to fill it out if you don't want to miss out. So yeah, if you haven't filled out your address yet, please log on to your SCUK account and do that, and then you will receive a copy.
It's worth mentioning as well, there's a nice little 3-page feature on our recent Europe trip.
Yes,
that you wrote. So you're officially a published author now.
I am. I will not claim to be an author, nor do I ever want to do that again. I'll leave that to the professionals. Time-wise, it worked out best because obviously, like Mark at Redline wants to do his own features on SCUK cars, members, everything. But time-wise, we were actually all away all the time, doing the Europe tours, and we took a lot of members with us who would have probably otherwise have liked to have had their cars featured by Redline. So the time-wise, it just worked out best that I provided the article, and Harry and Josh, our media team, provided the media for that. But yeah, it took me an embarrassingly long time to finish that article, to write it, so I won't be doing it again.
Fair enough.
But it was nice to do something different sometimes, isn't it? So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, fill out your address on the site and get your magazine.
Good. And then Scotland, but not the NC 500 this time.
No. SWC, Southwest Coast.
Oh, epic.
I think it's easily becoming one of our favourite UK road trips that we do, wouldn't you say? And it's awesome irrespective of the weather. So the weather is something this year particularly we've spoken about multiple times on the podcast, but it was again less than ideal weather for some of the trip, I would say. Certainly on day 2, when we've got a lot of distance that we're driving during the day, at least half the day was wet, but that had no impact on the enjoyment of the driving. It was still it's a really epic place to drive. So I would say we've got lots of our 2024 tours are now beginning to go kind of pre-live on the website. So we've got, I think, from memory, I think there's 6 on there at the moment, SWC included.
So what does pre-live mean?
So pre-live is that it's the first time we've done this, whereby we've got a register your interest button. So we don't have the specifics of the trip live, but we do know the dates. So it's there for you to see, and you can register interest. And then if you've registered interest, you will be the first to get a heads up as to the exact time and date that event will go live. So
Right.
you'll be, better informed to be able to jump on it quickly if you want to join us. And the response, the engagement with that register your interest feature has been great, really great. And I know we've launched a variety of things, Dolomites being future Dolomites tour being one of them, and that's been the most popular. I think we already had 20 cars register their interest for that so far, so that's fantastic to see. And we're just in the midst of looking into the planning around a couple of trips like that, particularly the 2 Europe ones, the 2 extra Europe ones that are going to happen next year.
Yeah.
So if you are interested, click register interest and you will be the first to hear.
And that's available to full members, presumably, or is it all light members as well?
So I would say that there's a couple of, we'll say, like large flagship tours that have got such interest that it's the full membership base that gets the gets the option to register on that. And then there's some of the smaller, or not small, like shorter tours, the 1 and 2 nighters, which are still open up to the entire membership base. Although what I would say is that there are 2 different price points, but whether you're full or light members, so full membership comes with a growing list of benefits for SUK that, including a lot of events have a preferential price rate that we've been able to negotiate. So if you are interested in joining us, on regular trips, then grab yourself some full membership.
And a copy of Redline magazine once a quarter in your post box.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark loves writing magazine features.
So you mentioned the weather on SWC.
Yeah.
On the flip side for that, so I was on the Cotswolds drive we did recently, and I was looking at the weather forecast and thinking, oh man, this is going to be yet another 2023 washout event where it just rains, and we couldn't have been more wrong. My faith in the rain was misplaced.
Absolutely. Well, it's nice that it was that that was the outcome rather than the alternative. But yeah, it was really good, that trip weather-wise. And we actually got to do a Vulcan bomber shot.
Yeah, they didn't crash it this year.
They didn't crash it this year, so there was no panicked phone calls an hour before we were going to attend.
And we didn't close down Chipping Norton this time either.
No.
So that was quite happy.
No. The traffic there's always bad.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It was the same traffic jam this year that was there from last year.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly the same.
It's an odd one, the Cotswold Tour, because it's unlike anything else that the club does. Because it's a venue tour. It's not a driving focused event. It's more around the places we go and the people you're with.
Yeah,
and that's sort of a bit of an adjustment, I think, for us and for the members who come along. But I think in general there's a lot of new members on that tour who'd not been on any drives with us before. It's definitely a good one as an introductory drive out with us. And it's not like the other events, but it's still really enjoyable.
It's interesting because I think that's something that we've been consciously aware of over the sort of more recent years, about sort of different sort of styles of tour, if you would put it like that. And I think we're for next year we're going to be more sort of specific about the kind of type of experience it is. We kind of, obviously there's different sort of paces of events that we run, and there's some events that are probably more suited to people when they're coming from more scenic and sort of want to bring the partners with them, and it's not going to be thrown around the car quite as much versus ones that are a bit more spirited. So I think it's going to allow a good mixture of types of events and more people to get involved in the way that they want to do as well.
Yeah, definitely. And the actual venues that we went to are all, every one of them stand out on their own merit. It's not. There's not a lot of duplication. It's not like you go into 3 different pubs or something on effectively like a driving pub crawl where everyone's drinking soft drinks, but it's everyone's different. Like the classic motor hub is wildly different to Caffeine and Machine, and that's not, both of those are wildly different to Diddley Squat.
Great experiences.
Every one of them's a great experience.
Just to add, have now a really good parking
Yes.
set up compared to what it was last year, which was chaos last year.
Yeah.
But this year it actually was really good. I was surprised. I didn't expect it to be that extensive.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're thinking of taking a group to visit Diddley Squat, it is actually now pretty good.
Yeah, it's now possible. I'd say it wasn't worthwhile before, but it is possible.
In
now.
my defence, last year when I went 2 weeks prior, it was possible then.
Wow.
And then we went 2 weeks later, and what was a car park was in a field with crops in it. That can happen.
And we got featured on a couple of YouTube channels just off the back of visiting Diddley Squat. There's someone who thought the 765 was a P1 initially, which was amusing for a car channel to get something like that.
That's never happened before, has it?
Not throwing shade on these YouTubers, but it's funny to see yourself in someone else's YouTube video on their YouTube channel. So that was pretty good fun.
Yeah.
Then
at the just at the end of that tour, we actually had a member buy a vehicle from.
We did.
Yeah, Classic Motor Hub.
No peer pressure involved there. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Honestly.
Yeah. I nearly did this last year, so I can't throw any shade around here. There was a really, really, really nice 355 there last year, and I very nearly impulse bought it, which would have resulted in me being single and homeless. So I'm glad I didn't. But yeah, one member saw pretty much their dream spec Aston Martin and just bought it on the spot. So they do sell the Classic Motor Hub. For those of you who've not been there, it's not a museum. It's an actual classic car dealership. They every car that's there is for sale, except for ones that are owned by the guys that run it. And so there's everything from sort of pre-war Bentleys through E-types. They have quite a few E-types in. Every time I've been there, there's been at least 2 or 3 E-type Jags there. Plus they had some old World War II armoured fighting vehicles and some other bits and pieces. But they occasionally get something slightly more modern. Yeah. So this time around there was the Aston Martin that one of the guys bought. There was also a 612 Ferrari 612 in a weird spec. But that's kind of the newest they go to, is kind of 2010s really. There might be the odd couple of sort of that era car. There won't be anything newer, and there's rarely anything. There's almost nothing in that sort of 1990s to 2000 range. It's all sort of proper classics.
Was it an old Aston Martin that was bought then, was it?
It's a Virage. So a bit of a weird car, actually. We'll go down this rabbit hole, but it stopped DB9 production and then restarted it with the facelift. And in between the DB9 sort of, I don't know what the term is, but the sort of the original DB9 and what became the facelift DB9, they produced the DBS. And they produced the Virage, so the Virage is basically a really, really high spec DB9. Right. So it got the good gearbox, or the beginning of the good gearbox. The original DB9 gearbox wasn't great, and some other enhancements like that. And they were all like really high spec cars. And so, yeah, they had one for sale, fell in love with it, got bought. So
we'll definitely welcome back. Again.
It sounds very similar, the dealership, to Aston Workshops over at Beamish. Similar type of stock that they hold there.
Yeah.
Plus, obviously, they keep a lot of people's vehicles in storage there, sale or return, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But listening to the range of cars that you were talking about there, very much Aston Workshops at Beamish is very similar to us locally to us.
Right. I think Classic Motor Hub do have some car storage as well, but not on site. So if you go to the Classic Motor Hub, it's all a sales thing. But if they have that business aspect of storing classics, and I think that's where quite a lot of their stock for sale comes through. People rotating things through their collections that might have been stored with them, and it's stored with them, so it might as well be retailed with them, sort of thing. But aside from the cars, the food's great, the place is great, isn't it? It's got a real nice atmosphere about the place.
Absolutely.
The people who run it are genuinely really nice, welcoming, and so on. So yeah, a really good venue and a proper highlight to end the Cotswolds tour on. So we do it every year, don't we? So there'll be another one.
Yeah, I'm
next
sure
year. So.
Yeah, similar time next year.
Did you not
for sure.
pop in and see the Beckhams then while you were down there? Because they've got a beautiful home in the Cotswolds, haven't they?
You live in
No,
Miami.
but it is a venue tour, and we're always looking for new venues. So we've done the Vulcan Bomber now. It might be the Beckhams next year. You
Bomber
heard
to
it here.
Beckhams.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Yeah.
So there's one more that we want to talk about, which is a convenient link to Paul being here. So I really wanted to come to this, and I'm sad that I couldn't for some personal things going on. But JPC and SCUK kind of had a joint event, I suppose. Well, it's JPC's event, and we just attended it, your event.
Much more than that, though.
Yeah.
We feel that, as I say, we can't believe that we've been with you guys since 2018 from the early concepts of it all. So, yeah, you're very much part of the family.
So give us the event from your perspective then. Let's tell the listeners what it was.
How Bridlington came off then.
How was the day? What's the highlights for you?
Bridlington came off the back of our Whitby event last year, and a lady called Kerry Carruthers, who runs Yorkshire Coast Bid and Route YC. So Route YC is similar to NC 500 in the sense that trying to attract people to drive along the east coast of Yorkshire, and had been following us for a while and was amazed at how successful Whitby was. And Bridlington doesn't really get very much. Scarborough would probably absorb most of the other events, and it was just, I thought it was a nice story to be able to do an event on Bridlington. So we got invited to see the Waves event that they do about May time. So they're racing retro cars and motorbikes along the beach. I think there's only 4 venues in the whole of the UK that allow them to do that. And I'd never heard of the event, so we were invited as guests. We took our stand down there, and we were telling people that we had this idea of bringing some supercars to Bridlington, and the reception was fabulous. You know, a bit like Whitby when the kids were shouting at us, something that doesn't have fish and chips, ships and the likes. So a new event being brought to the diversity that Whitby offer. Obviously, they're fabulously known for their goth weekends and stuff like that. So off the back of that, we started the communications with Kerry and Yorkshire Coast Bid and East Riding County Council, because the difficult part for us, as most people probably don't understand, is to get the parade element of it all. Is you've got to get a road closure in place, and not everybody wants to do that, because everybody assumes that we're going to be tearing around the streets, and the old red mist will come down and it's not controlled. But obviously with them eventually realising that it's very, very serious for us and safety is paramount, and no better parade partner than SCUK, where the members are used to doing these events for us, and we allow a little bit of flexibility, but within guidelines. And so Bridlington turned around and said yes to us. So I immediately got back in touch with the boys at SCUK and said, would you like to be our parade partners? And it's probably fair to say, Mark and Sean, that the uptake was a little bit slow to start off with. I started panicking, thinking, have we gone a little bit too far with Bridlington? Because it is a difficult place to get to. Yeah. And I had a few sleepless nights thinking this uptake's taking a while. And then, as per usual, SCUK came good and did themselves proud and did us proud by bringing some amazing cars to Bridlington.
So how many people would you say attended? So cars aside, like people through the town, like was it?
I would say that it was where Whitby was like 7,500. I would say, Mark, you'd probably agree, maybe a couple of thousand there. Yeah. I think one of the criticisms from the locals was they didn't even know the event was on, if they'd only known. So I think it's something I need to take up with East Riding County Council and the bid to try and make sure that publicity gets done, because we try to push various social media channels and stuff like that in order to get the up there. But it's always difficult. Race the Waves was exactly the same. First time it was there, nobody knew it was there, and then it's built into this amazing event. I think over the 3 or 4 days there are 100,000 people come. Wow. So yeah, it's often the case with the first event. I think Whitby, for us, the reason why it was so successful is so many people follow us from the Tees Valley and Teesside, and it's where you would go for a tourist to go and visit, to have some fish and chips. It's 40-45 minutes from the area that most people know where we operate from. So our network in Teesside and the Tees Valley is very, very strong. So a lot of people came from Teesside to come and see it. We were actually worried about Whitby being too many people. So
it's a good problem to have, isn't it?
The problem that you've then got is parking congestion, people getting crushed, and all the other things that you have to think about when when you're in the parade element where you're enclosing people within pedestrian barriers. Is you have to be mindful of how many people you can have in a designated area, and it's quite small, the area in Whitby. So Bridlington was much better, Mark, wasn't it? Because it was spread out across the promenade. It was a beautiful venue, and thanks to the Lions, Bridlington Lions, who were at Race the Waves, they thought what we did was fantastic. They came on as a support mechanism for us, and also Bob Taylor from the RNLI, from the Lifeboat Centre. So we used the centre as the Lifeboat Centre as the area to use on the promenade. And also, because it's outside of our area of interest from the charities perspective, we wanted to be able to support those good charities as well. So Bridlington Lions do some amazing work for the people of Bridlington, and obviously the RNLI, of course, it's much needed cash for them. So raising their profiles for them at the event, they were so grateful for that as well. So it was sharing the love outside our area of interest. So that was another new element to the charity starting to work outside of where the charity is based within North Yorkshire. It's quite difficult trying to push a charity in North Yorkshire to people from East Yorkshire, when in reality it can take 2 hours from there. So it's quite a distance away.
Sure.
So the others, as far as organising the event and the actual parade, it was brilliant, wasn't it, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing with you saying about the the numbers, I think what was quite interesting because I was part of the parade, is that obviously we had the great weather to start with, then we had the downpour, and then it felt like, because of the downpour, this event's got quite quiet. But what actually happened was, because it was 2-tier, when we went to do the parade, we went up the steep ramp, and I was like, it's actually really busy. It's just everyone was waiting at the top where we couldn't see for us to do the parade. So that area was really busy. I was surprised by how many people were waiting for the parade to go on. Yeah,
I think we always sat there thinking these people aren't coming back. Us hardy Brits, and especially if you're a motor enthusiast, we're hardened to it.
Yeah.
And they came back in their flocks. I have to say a massive thank you to my mate Mike Devlin, who brought me a brolly. Literally, as I popped the brolly after being soaking wet, popped the brolly up, the rain stopped. So. And then the people came back, didn't they? And I think it was a surprise when we got on the top and they were there, and we thought, phew. Because there's nothing worse than going through all that work and then people just not knowing that it's about, and you've missed this huge opportunity. But the feedback was phenomenal.
I mean, so 2,000 people in the context of some events, right, sounds like not a lot. But if you think like what 2,000 people, if you stood in front of 2,000 people, or try and get 2,000 people into any kind of room, it's a lot of people. I've been to gigs with really famous bands that have had less than 2,000 people attend, and it still feels like a huge number of people. So, even for it to be kind of a small event and only 2,000 people is still a massive achievement, and it's only going to grow as awareness grows. So,
I think it's these expectations that you get. I think the first time that we did the Supercar Saturday brand, which was Stockton in 2018. We only had 40 cars, 20 on static display and 20 in the parade, if you remember. And there was 12,500 people came down. Wow. It was the biggest event outside their fireworks spectacular and their winter wonderland that they do, the Sparkles event that Stockton Council do. And the revenue it generated for the local businesses there is how that brand was born. So we probably have those big expectations that we're going to pull 10,000 plus people, and that's not always the case, as you well say.
It's still amazing, regardless. I think certainly, putting an event on that scale for me would be, terrifying. So hats off to you for doing it, but obviously the only way is up. Really, you can.
I think one of the things is it's when you're involved in something like this, and I think we all can appreciate this. It doesn't feel like you're working, because it's something we're so passionate about. I describe it as the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory syndrome, that we love what we're doing and what cars are going to be then. We're all like little kids ourselves, and we try to remember that, yes, we do this all the time, but we all got full-time jobs as well. This is all part-time hobby for us all to bring these events together. Is when you see the kids and the dads and this camaraderie you get between families and the younger generation and then the older generation all together, talking about that car used to be the car that I used to drive, 25, 30 years ago, son. And that's what's so lovely about it. And I think, yes, the reality is you get a group of cars that's static, and then a group of those cars will then be able to go into a parade. The actual model itself is quite simple. The hard part is the road closure. That's the real tricky part.
Sure.
And the first things when I went down this journey was, no, it's not going to happen. This was the police stepping in, and this isn't going to happen, this safety advisory group. And it's all about safety. And I said, don't talk to me about safety. And then it goes, I was the guy who had to sweep that mess up. And they go, what do you mean? I said, well, I was a traffic policeman. And as soon as I said that, boosh, they came on board.
Right.
Because they feel then that there's somebody with that sensible approach. And, there's lots of things that we're working on for the future that have been about proving that we can deliver safe events, because it is dangerous.
Sure.
And, somebody doing a wheel spin or something, and then a piece of metal or a nut or a bolt coming off a car and, going into the crowd or whatever. And we've all seen videos where that happens, a wheel will come off and bounce into the crowd. We are conscious of those things. So I think having Graham Reeves, whose background is 30 years in events management for Stockton Council, again adds that credibility that when you go to the councils, we've got a strong support mechanism of people who paramount safety is the number one goal for us.
Of course, yeah. So just rewind a bit, because there's going to be people listening to this who have absolutely no idea what JPC is, what you do, how you got started or anything. So tell us, what is JPC?
So JPC is my son's initials, James Paul Cannon. So my son James was diagnosed at birth with cerebral palsy, oxygen starvation at birth, which was tragic in its own right. The fact I can speak to you here without getting emotional, if this had been done a few years ago, I'd probably been cried at this point, because it's a very, very emotional subject for me. And we always believed that there was something else wrong with James. And in 2018, he just had full corrective spinal surgery, because James suffers with hypertonia as well, so floppy baby syndrome. So James's muscles don't do the job, and his whole skeletal framework is all distorted, and he's deformed in all sorts of different ways. So he's had hip surgery. This particular point, he was having full corrective spinal surgery because the curve was pressing on his internal organs. So that was a very, very stressful time. And then literally out the blue, the genetics people got in touch and said, your son has Pura syndrome. He has what? And I Googled Pura syndrome, and there's a picture of a girl called Taylor in America. She's 27 now. And it was James, exactly the same as James. And she had a blue blouse on with white dots on. And James wears neckerchiefs because he likes to tune his clothes and stuff like that. He's well known for it. And James has blue and white dotted neckerchiefs on. Wow. And I just cried my eyes out there. There's this girl who's a few years older than James, identical. And they all look very, very similar, the kids. And they struggle to go through puberty. So Benjamin, but when you get old, these kids struggle to go through and look old. So although James is 23 now, he probably looks like 14, 15 years old, which always comes in handy where kids under 16 eat free. So I always go to them and say, how old's your son? How old's he look? Oh, 14, 15. I said, oh, you're very astute. Then it gets James a free meal. So, but he's starting to grow a moustache now, hasn't he? Yeah. So he's starting to look a little bit older, bless him. So he's slowly going through that puberty level. And so we have this situation with this young man, and he was completely and utterly socially unaware. It was very, very sad. And 2016, it was a rare occasion I was watching Silverstone Formula 1. And do you know when the cars make that zing, 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 when the camera's up close and they made that noise? It was like somebody switched the light on his head, because he was lying on me going to sleep. And he looked at our 50-inch TV that he'd never shown any interest in. And I said, Julie, I shouted Julie. And again, a bit later on, zing, 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 zing. And this big smile came on his face. I said, look, he likes the noises there, the engines. So I downloaded some apps and motorbikes and this, that, and the other. Massive smile on his face. And I said, Julie, he's picked up on something here that he's interacting with. Yeah. And at the same time, I was interested in following Nick Hamilton, who obviously has cerebral palsy and ambassador for Scope and stuff. And he had a video called Driven to Inspire, which was him moving from a Renault Clio Cup onto British touring cars. Yep. And his training regime, because obviously his legs are very, very weak.
Yes.
And I thought, he's going to have his first race at Croft Race Circuit. What better opportunity to try and meet him? So, as you do, you're hanging around the trailer. He's not here. And eventually he comes out with his helmet on, and there's Dad Anthony behind him. And I said, James is in his wheelchair, can I introduce my son to him? And I told him the story and this, that, and the other. And the Northern Echo took a photograph of it. Nick Hamilton makes little boy's dream come true. And we got invited down to Silverstone. But the funny thing is, after the photograph had been taken, he was walking down to his touring car. His dad slapped him on the head, said, "You could have taken your helmet off." And I won't use an expletive, but he swore at his son. I just said, "Anthony, that's fine." There was no, and he said, "No, Paul, he should have taken his helmet off. Would you like to come down to Silverstone and I promise we'll give you a bit more time?" And that's how that relationship started. And so I went back home that weekend, and I just thought to myself, James loves engine noises and stuff like that. Why don't we, as part of the charity, create a more fun, because obviously dealing with adults and children with special needs is very, very sad.
Yeah.
We just thought if we have a fun element of it all, and maybe challenge the expectations of what a lot of these kids who've never been a VIP, never been treated, specially. And one of the most amazing things that came out of it is children and adults with autism who hate white noise. You can't have a lawnmower on, you can't have a hairdryer on, and those types of things. They find it sensory overload.
Yes. Yeah.
Is then we invited them in 2017 to our first event at Wynyard, and the kids with ear defenders would take them off and listen to these V6, V8, V10s, V12s and the reverberation in the body, and Mum and Dad were going, what's going on here? They hate that noise. And then I got a message off a mother who said to me, he smiled all day, and I can't remember ever in his life him smiling all day. And he's asleep, fast asleep now at 9:30 at night, and he's still smiling. I'm getting emotional thinking about that. So we realised then that we'd created something that was special. We call it flipping it. So we put on motorsports events, but the priority for us as an events company is making sure that a selection of adults and children with special needs have a wonderful day, which the public can also come to. And a lot of people don't realise that when we're doing these events, apart from SCUK, who members kindly allow people to come and sit in their cars, and sometimes, the wife or the girlfriends come along as well, and they'll give up their seat to allow a child or an adult with special needs to go out on that parade. They're all the things that these guys have been supporting us with since 2018. And I think that drive in from the Co-op car park into Wynyard Estate was amazing, because it was a few miles, and some of the kids trying to open the doors to get off the cars, and there's a few little bits and bobs, wasn't there?
I was quite nervous as well.
Is these kids just the memories and their this fascination for love of cars. So that's how it started off, was just purely from James watching that, and now he's a massive fan of engine noises, and one of the things he loves the most is bin wagons. So for his 21st birthday, obviously because we did Stockton Supercar Saturday for them, I told the council James loved bin wagons. So his 21st birthday, which was the Tuesday, and our bins normally get emptied on the Wednesday, they brought a brand new bin wagon to the house. This is during COVID, and allowed James to empty our bin a day early. And he thought it was Christmas because he's non-verbal, but it was just his face and the animation of him and everything else like that. And they're the special things that have come off the back of creating this events company.
Yeah, that's a really amazing sort of story. I think we can all connect with that on some level. I've been to a few of the JPC events, and they are different. They do have a different feel to them. I remember a couple of fun stories from Croft. So JPC do an event called Smiles for Miles, and that's at Croft, and we've supported that for at least 2 years. It might be longer. One of the aspects that SCUK supports JPC with is passenger rides around the Croft circuit, and so I did that. Couldn't do that this year. Did it the year prior, and basically the setup is people in return for a donation get to sit as a passenger for a lap in a car, in a supercar, and so I lost count of how many laps I did. But there was a couple of really funny ones, because you never know who's going to get into your car, right? You're just sat there, you're helmeted up, you're driving through the paddock to collect whoever it is that's going to get into your car. And two really stand out for me, and I'm sure you probably have. I think you've done it, haven't you, John?
I've not done it at Croft, no. I've done it at other events before.
Yeah. So
you took James out, didn't you?
Yeah. Trying to get out of the car as well before I'd set off.
So the two that stand out for me, there's this young lad who got in, and there's an age limit, isn't there? I think it's 13.
Yeah.
So he can't have been much older than that. He got into the car, and he was obviously very nervous, but trying to put like an over-the-top brave face on it. And you know, it's like, have you ever gone out in a car like this before? Have you ever gone quickly before? Like, what do you want? And he was like, you know, basically full, just send it, you know, let's go. So you're pulling out of the paddock onto the track, and this kid was going berserk. Like, you could say he was having it was like being on a roller coaster for him, you know, and he was just like having an absolute just whale of a time in the passenger seat, and just basically didn't stop. Kind of laughing and yelling and whatever the whole lap round, which is quite distracting when you're trying to drive around a circuit. But it was just like, you could tell he'd never done anything like it before, and you know, for him to be sat in this bright orange McLaren going round a track was obviously like just blew his mind, you know. And the other funny one was this guy had bought a ticket for his son, but his son was 11, so he wasn't allowed to go out on the tracks, but he queued up anyway with his son. And then as soon as the door to the car opened, he gave his wife the helmet and stuffed her into the car, basically. So she had no idea this was coming and was terrified. And I just said to her, like, we can go slowly. We don't have to, but you're only here once, you know. What do you want me to do? And she was like, well, I'm only here once, so let's go for it. So we did the lap at, you know, the 70 mile an hour limit. And basically, you come out where it's not quite the pits. So for those of you who know Croft, it's you join the track at the first corner for these laps, and you basically quickly go into a couple of right-handers, and you arrive at a chicane. From the moment we pulled out of the pits to that chicane, she was screaming like at the top of her lungs, like absolutely terrified, and then lost the ability to scream for the rest of the lap, and then had to be helped out the car at the end because she'd basically been turned to jelly. And then her and her husband came up to me at the end of the day and was like, that was absolutely brilliant, you know, one absolute highlight of the day for, you know, although she was too terrified to speak and say thank you at the time, you know, she came over and was really grateful. I just thought, what an absolutely brilliant event, you know, where you get to, these people obviously donated however much to charity to go out and do these laps. So it was brilliant from the driver's seat, let alone their experience. And that was just wonderful. You know?
Story. Maybe for next year, maybe oxygen masks or an optional add-on you can...
Most people have never sat in anything as high performance as the cars that they're getting taken out in. You know, most people, I would say most of the people who go out on these laps maybe they've sat in a friend's hot hatch being taken out somewhere, maybe, at the most, let alone getting into something with 600 horsepower or more and then getting taken out around a track, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's just what, you know, this one of the special things about a charity like JPC is that, I mean, certainly, you know, from my end, SC UK is one of the things that we do, but it's a really active part of our year, and I think we do become a little bit numb to the cars that we are around and the experiences that we have, and you forget that for people who are not doing that, being around these cars is an experience that they don't have very often. Yeah. And also beyond that, if you then add the special needs element into it, then to be able to make somebody's day, week, year by giving access to something that I think we do forget is special, it's an amazing thing to do. And yeah, hats off to you.
We stepped it up a little bit this year. You agreed last year, you weren't there last year, were you? Because you were on the European Tour.
Yeah, so I was there this year.
But we had a massive queue and probably not enough cars. So thanks to SC UK again, we had, I think, about 130 people who wanted to do passenger rides. And again, you try to make sure we can accommodate everybody. So we had loads and loads of cars. But it just shows you the impact of austerity, is people wouldn't pay £20 this time. Oh, really? And the first session was really, really disappointing for the owners because they want to take people out.
Yeah.
And we didn't have enough passengers. So it's another thing that we'll look at is I've tried to think about I listened to you guys earlier on talking about marketing and stuff like that, is Halford's got involved this year and Pirelli tyres for sponsoring Tiff's car, thanks to Reap Yorkshire, who's obviously a partner with you guys as well, and Miles, great guy, who gave up his car to let Tiff do it. But I did let him go out first, and then he realised, oh my God, this is what he's going to do to my car.
I wonder if he'd seen Tiff driving the M4 last year, whether he'd been so willing to give up his M2 this year.
He said his phone hadn't stopped ringing where people were saying, do you realise what Tiff's going to do to your car? Are you all right? Do you need to go and see somebody? So Miles was telling me. But, massive thanks to him for doing that. But what we were thinking was, it might be nice this next year is that we get a sponsor for each of the sessions. So let's say, for example, Halfords, if you're listening, is you sponsor that session. So we generally try to get about 100 people out within the hour. So £20 each is about 2,000 quid. So for their 2,000 sponsorship, they'll be able to have 100 people have that experience. So they'll get it for free. But Halfords might want to decide that they'll offer a competition through their stores or whatever they want to do. So they're the concepts that we're thinking off the back of things. And then that way we'll know exactly everything's been pre-sold, how many cars we need in order to make sure that people don't have to wait very long. Yeah. Then we're meeting the needs of the owners who quite kindly give up their time, their fuel in order to do this. So we're always constantly trying to fine-tune things. But the one of the things I wanted to mention was we were picking up James picking his Motability car up, Peugeot 5008 from Simon Bales in Stockton. And Stuart, who was the salesman, who wasn't the original guy when we ordered the car, because that was about 15 months ago when you order the car and eventually it comes. So the original salesman was no longer there. And this young guy, Stuart, who looked after us. And Lauren Taylor, who's now Lauren Dark, who's recently got mentioned, she's a racing driver who's also a patron of the charity. We'd had a meeting about Croft, at the Hilton Hotel, and I had to go over and sign some paperwork for James's mobility car, and met Stuart for the first time, and he goes, is that Lauren Taylor, racing driver? And she was in her M2, and I went, he goes, I follow her on Instagram, can you introduce me to her? So I said, you've got a fan in there. So he came out and he met her, and we're just chatting all the way, and he said, my friend's got an M2. That's all he said at that particular point. Anyway, I signed the paperwork and off I went, and then he rang me and he said, do you know my friend who's got the M2 I was telling you about? I said, yeah. He said, he's paralysed from the chest down. Lewis used to race motorbikes, and he was at Alton Park, and he was 19 years old, had a bad crash and ended up paralysed from the chest down. But he's got this M2 with hand controls on it. Mm-hmm. He's got a racing Cupra. Would it be possible for him to take adults and children with special needs out? Because we always look at mental health being one of the biggest issues for a lot of our clients. Is nobody wants to give me a job, I never get invited to weddings, and all the other things that the common feelings that adults and children with special needs who are able to communicate their wants and needs feel. And I thought, how inspirational would that be to try and get this young man who's paralysed from the chest down but has a racing car to inspire our adults and children that we know. But that wasn't, there was a hurdle. And Croft themselves were massively supportive of this, but it was down to the insurance company for Croft. Mm-hmm. And I had everything crossed, and they came back and goes, what an amazing story. Yes, we'd be happy for him to take his car on the track. The reason he can't get his ARS licence is you need to get out of your race car within 30 seconds, I think it is, and obviously he can't do that, so he won't be able to get a race licence. He took me out in that car, and I was crying. In fact, there's a video of me, and I was crying my eyes out on it, because I could not believe that he was driving that car with buttons on his steering wheel. And the kids who went out with him were just blown away. It was one of the highlights of their day. No disrespect to anybody else, but what Lewis did there for some of our clients was just absolutely breathtaking.
I can tell you that I did not know that story when I was at the event. I didn't know who the driver was. And I commented to more than one person, because you had McLaren 600 LTs out there, you had Lambos out there, Ferraris, and I said, there is a Cupra that is embarrassing the majority of the cars out there. The driving was exceptional. I could not believe how fast that Cupra was moving. So it's good to know the backstory on it, because, an amazing story that.
Do you know when you think of yourself, brake, and then I'm just thinking to myself, he's just watching with the buttons. It was just, I was just in awe of this man, and he's become part of the JPC family moving forward. So it was also a wonderful experience for him, just like it was for yourself when you're on your car. There's this wonderful feedback that you get from everybody that you're able to put smiles on faces, as you were saying earlier, Mark. I think a lot of the members don't realise, how lucky they are, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, is to have these amazing cars.
Absolutely.
And being involved in our events just is able to share that love, and it's what makes our events so different. And I think why we get massive buy-ins from the local authorities, and why this brand is continuing to grow through some tough times, because obviously we had to survive COVID with no events and no shows, and like a lot of people, it nearly went by the wayside. And then I lost my mum in May. which is a real reflection on your life and stuff like that. My mum's dying wish was for me to have a less stressful life. So running the charity, supporting it, doing the motorsports, and then caring for James. There's only so many hours in a day, and I'm exhausted all the time. And so I reflected on that, and my wife said to me, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to be a house husband." And she went, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, that's what I want to be there for James whilst I still can." In the back of my mind, I knew that, like Sean's face there, and I'm thinking to myself, I knew that's not where I would end up, but that's how I felt at that particular time. And motorsports nearly came to an end, because it was a real test of character whether I was able to resurrect it. So I was about 10 to 12 weeks of this year that I was all over the place. And then, do you know what, I looked up and I said, "You know what you want me to do, Mum, here?" And because I'd really enjoyed this element of it, and I picked myself up, dusted myself down, and I was so grateful for the fact that we had an amazing event again at Croft and again at Bridlington. So it inspires you, and then I've got something big to announce later on. So,
and I think just to very quickly take a step back for anyone who hasn't attended Croft before, but so JPC, you've achieved some amazing things with the events you've put on. I think it's fair to say that Croft is probably one of the flagships of what you do during the year. But Croft as an event, for anybody who wants to attend, it's a very unique event that it's an exceptional one in the annual, let's say, supercar motorsport calendar, and it's well, it was year 2, wasn't it, this year? But it's growing fantastically. But it's a static car show that's got all kinds of cars, not just supercars, but all manner of types of cars with track, with Croft circuit behind it, where cars are going around all day giving passenger rides. And on top of that, you've got, well, certainly for the last 2 years, you've had Tiff Nadell do passenger rides as well. And then you've also had a number of pretty special things down there to see as well, including Wambarns, Koenigsegg and 918 and stuff like that. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of the event, because for people who are not in the know, it really is becoming quite an event. That
it's well worth the drive. It's a 3.5-4 hour drive for me to get there. Yeah. It's worth that.
People came from London as well. Do you know what I mean? It was like phenomenal.
Really good. Yeah.
Can I just share with you the hot dog story, because it's quite funny?
Go on.
Mark sort of alluded to the first year. The whole idea was just to have SCUK as our parade partner doing the passenger laps. And Julie and I don't spend a lot of time together. And I was going to go down and see my mum and dad down in Worcester. And Julie said, "I'm too busy at the farm running the charity and everything else like that." And I said, "Oh, such a shame, I'd love to have come." Anyway, last minute she decides that she's going to come. And it was Easter weekend. And we always book at Hinkley Island, Jury's Inn, and take James to Drayton Manor. Because although he's 20, he loves Thomas the Tank Engine and stuff like that. James has capacity to throw food when he's eating. It's his time to entertain the crowd in a restaurant. So if you sat there having your Sunday dinner and a Yorkshire pudding lands on your table, that's because my son sat on the table next to yours and decides that it's far more interesting throwing it on your table and seeing the reaction than actually eating it. So we put him on the Thomas the Tank Engine ride. So this was all done last minute. And you talk about fate and how people come into your life. And at the back of the Thomas the Tank Engine rides, they have the tea room, which is from the Thomas the Tank Engine story, which is at the back of the zoo. I said, "Oh, look, Julian, there's only a few people there. It looks very, very quiet. Let's go through the zoo and then we'll have some lunch there rather than on the main part where there's lots of a huge audience for it to play." So we go through the zoo and there's a man sat there with his wife and 2 little boys and a lady with a little girl. So I thought, he's not going to ruin too many people's lunch. So we go for the Shabila hot dog, which is like a baguette with a 12-inch hot dog in it. Mustard and rest off for me and James, and Julie gets a cheese savoury baguette. Sat there eating it, really good. I said, "Julie, be careful, because a lot of the mustard's gone to the bottom of the baguette." I said, "He's been really good. I'll go and treat him to an ice cream." She says, "Do you want one, love?" And she said, "Yes, please." So I go back into the cafe and I literally turn the corner, slide the thing, get the 2 ice creams out, slide the thing, and then all I hear is Julie going, "Paul, help, help." And I'm thinking some silverback gorillas escaped from the zoo and attacking my family. So I come running out and this guy's crying his eyes out. He went, "He waited for you to go into the cafe. I was watching him." And he squashed the bottom of the baguette. And she looked like Waynetta Slob, did Julie, all this mustard and red sauce all in her hair, her face, her clothes. And he was slapping the table. He thought it was absolutely hilarious. And I went, oh, cheers, mate. And he said, I should know better. I've got a daughter, 27, with cerebral palsy. She's away in Blackpool on holiday. Anyway, clean Julian James up and invites us to come and sit over. And he talks about the power of advertising. I had my JPC Specialist Motorsports hoodie on. He goes, oh, what's JPC Specialist Motorsports? So I told him our upcoming event was, we'd moved it from Wynyard to Croft. And he goes, oh, would you like me to bring some of my cars? And I was just thinking, what cars? He said, oh, I've got a touring car collection. I've got Nick Hamilton's touring car, Jason Plato's, Adam Morgan's. I've got RS 500, a whole RS collection, this, that, and the other. And do you know when you sat there and just thinking, is this true? Yeah. Was this guy just messing me about? Let's get the holidays out the way and then we'll get in touch. And sure enough, Andy Moore gets in touch with me. And the rest was history. He brought all those touring cars down there, and he's become a massive friend of mine and a great supporter. So one of the things that we're working with at the moment is something over in the Manchester way. It's like walking through treacle at the moment, but big things take a long time.
They do.
But I'm not giving up, and I've got a very, very good contact at where this venue is going to be, which is huge. But I'm probably putting that off till 2025 at the moment, just purely because of the other work that we've got going on. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that just shows you through my son and his behaviour, squeezing a hot dog, that we got this guy on board who's become a very, very good friend of the families as well.
So I take it James is not banned from hot dogs anymore.
No. I tried to reach out to Shabila Hot Dogs to tell them the story. The marketing woman got in touch and wasn't interested, which I thought was quite sad, because it would have been a nice story to sell about hot dogs, but hey-ho. Not everybody has that marketing spirit, do they?
True.
But,
Yeah,
it just shows you little things like that, and it was just fate as well. And there's so many stories I could tell you about how people have come into our lives. Well, SC UK came off the back of somebody else letting us down for the parade, last minute stepped in, and have been loyal to us ever since. So, you know, there's always somebody listening, and always somebody that you'll bump into, and just the power of marketing. You wear your top and somebody just asks you what you're doing, and then you tell them, and then they become involved.
Yeah,
so
that's really true. You never know who it is you're talking to. Or I used to travel a lot for work, so I've been to literally every single country in Europe. So I spend a lot of time in airports, and you just never know, like, who's in front of you, who's behind you in the queue for airport security. I've met some really interesting people that have unlocked some doors for me and things like that, you know, just through being bored in a queue at Heathrow Airport. You know, you just never know. And people aren't always what they seem, both for good and bad, but more often good than not, you know. So, yeah, it's funny that they had these things come about.
Julie was working for Lexus at the time, and I think the LFA had come out, and we were down at Goodwood with Lexus. So we had hospitality and that, which you could get into areas that you not normally can't get into. So obviously the LFA was going to be doing the hill climb, and we were invited into the paddock where a load of other cars. And if you remember the Morgan three-wheeler, Dizzy Rascal was driving that. And I said to Julie, there's Dizzy Rascal there. And he had like the old, fighter pilot helmet on, the old suede one. And he said, oh, don't shout that out. I don't want people to know that it's me. I thought, all right, okay. And this really, really smartly dressed man was stood there, and we were getting some pictures of me and Julie trying to do a selfie with the picture of the LFA. And he said, oh, would you like me to take a picture for you? I said, yeah, please, if you don't mind. So he takes this picture. He said, oh, would you like a picture of Dizzy with the Morgan? And I said, oh, yeah, please, that's really good. So there's Dizzy smiling in the photograph. And then he said, I said, oh, thanks very much. He said, oh, do you know who I am? I said, I'm ever so sorry, no. Who are you? And he said, oh, I'm Charles Morgan from Morgan Motor Cars. So, just something simple like that. Yeah. And then he invited us down to Malvern to go and have a tour of the factory. Unfortunately, he's not part of it anymore, is he? Yeah. So, but no, that was a nice little touch, thing. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I've just been thinking in the background while we've been chatting there. You know, you mentioned about the touring car disability adaptions, and I constantly misremember this, but it's Alex Zanardi, isn't it, who lost his legs or the use of his legs in a really bad crash, and then carried on racing but had the hand controls adapted. You know, someone listening to this knows someone who knows Alex Zanardi. I'm sure of it. The world is small enough. Get in touch, just to do something for JPC at Croft to get Alex Zanardi down or something like that.
I think it's amazing how many drivers are who have disabilities, and I think racing with autism is one of the huge things at the moment. Can I share you with another very, very special story?
That's why we're here.
It's about a karting place over in Rochdale, Team Karting, and Matty Street. So Matty's autistic, and I'll choose my words carefully, but maybe wasn't doing as well at school as he should have been doing. And then it didn't seem to be any grasping from the school about the failures for this young man. And so the dad felt really, really sorry, for his son. So he decided to take him to the karting place in Rochdale. And I might be exaggerating this story slightly, so my apologies, Matt, if it's not exactly right, but I think the way that I tell it just makes it even more meaningful. So Matty had never been out in a kart before, goes out in the kart, and he's like 2 seconds off the fastest lap time. And they're going, what? Send him out again. 1.8 seconds. You know what I mean? And this kid just was at one with his kart. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Dad had told the school about this, and the maths teacher picked up on it, and he went, if I asked Matty what 2 and 2 was, he can't give me an answer. So I wonder if I said, Matty, if you had 2 race karts and I gave you money to buy another 2 race karts, how many race karts would Matty would have 4 race karts? Matty went on to get a degree, right? And then went and bought that karting place, and he owns it to this day. What an amazing story about somebody picking up, something that, especially if somebody who has a son or a daughter with autism, is if they find something they're interested in, they get that certainly to the level of being obsessed with it as well. But what a remarkable story that was. So Matty has a young man called Sandro Ballesteros, who I met at one of the Autosports, I think is at Birmingham NEC, which is the early part of the year. Mm-hmm. And along with a little boy called Jack the Supercar Kid. And these kids had never met Mark James before and just instantly supported him. It was just a wonderful camaraderie between the 3 boys. And I found out from Sandro, I think it was 2010, 2011, when Jenson Button took the Vodafone McLaren along the main streets in Manchester. So this little boy was 4 years old here, Sandro. And it inspired Sandro to get into karting. Now he races in the BMW 1 Series now. So it's just a fabulous story. So I'll tell you a little bit more about this big event over the Northwest then. So me being me thinking, if those shut the road off to do this event, and I know they shut the roads off to do Manchester City winning the Cup, which they won obviously this year and they won last year, I wonder if Manchester City would be happy to do a supercar event along that location. It's a big ask. So I did a presentation to a very good friend of mine, Barry South from Manchester City Football Club. And I'm halfway through the presentation. He goes, can I just stop you? I thought, here we go. Barry's background is a police officer like me. We've known each other for 40 years. And I'm thinking, Barry's very critique about things, black and white. And I thought, here we go. He's going to criticise it. And he went, what if I could find you a venue that has its own infrastructure and this, that, the other? I said, don't be trying to push Manchester City Football Club here because we're not interested. So I said, let me finish my presentation off. So as I get to the end of the presentation, one of the venues is Manchester City Football Club because obviously I'm thinking ahead here. I know Barry. Mm-hmm. So that's the people that we're working with. So the idea behind this is to do an event at Manchester City Football Club. The difficulty that we've got at the moment is they're having some developments on the North Stand. It's getting extended. So that's put it back. But potentially, if you know the venue, you've got the training ground on one side of the road with a bridge that links the 2 over. Mm-hmm. So the plan is that we'll do it at the training ground. And once the building work's finished, maybe even have it a two section. So maybe retro and classics in the training ground and then the performance, hyper and supercars being at the football ground itself. So that's the level we're at with a black tie ball on the evening. And the idea behind that is to raise, again, because it's outside our area of interests, is to raise money for City in the Community, which is Manchester City Football Club's own charity. But did you see, I'm not a massive football fan, Jack Grealish and the little boy who asked him to do that thing at the World Cup?
Yeah.
The little boy had, I think it popped up on TikTok that professional footballers don't give a monkeys about people with special needs. So this little kid had asked Jack Grealish, because his sister's 19 with cerebral palsy, are you a good brother? And Jack Grealish, there's a little bit of a video, isn't it, between the two of them of Jack Grealish saying, I'd like to think I'm a very good brother to my sister and daddy, and the communications, and this little boy saying, how much he admires him, etc., etc. And then Jack signs a football shirt and then hands the shirt over to the little boy down at the training, and he's like beaming. And it was just a lovely story. And then he asked him if he could do the worm. I think, and Jack said, I'll do that, I might pop my back, but do this hand thing. And at the World Cup, he did that, and it was all over social media. Yep. So that popped up on my news feed the day before I was having my meeting with Manchester City Football Club, I said, but you missed Jack Grealish and the football club have missed what that little boy was on about. He goes, what are you on about, Paul? I said, watch it again. So we watched it again. He says, I don't know, what have we missed? So I goes to the point, and what the little boy's talking about is there isn't a football boot that's adaptable for people who wear splints who play football. And he actually talks about it in the video. It takes, sometimes the referee has to take nearly 10 minutes to put his boot back on, as this, that, and the other. Well, I was aware that Nike did a Flexies training shoe for one of our clients. So I knew they were about, and I thought, surely somebody within the technical departments at Nike would be able to create a football boot with this. And he goes, see the difference between us and you, Paul, is this is the world that you live in.
Yeah.
So I said, one of the things that we wanted to look at is if we did this for Manchester City Football Club, is the money that would be raised would go towards providing football boots for adults and children who play football, not just at Manchester City, but wherever. And but certainly, because obviously the rivalry between Manchester United and Limerick. But then, would you believe who the boot deal was at that particular time with Jack Grealish? Was Nike, and it had been missed by everybody. So obviously Puma's the main sponsor for Manchester City. So Barry goes to me, would you be happy if Puma gets involved? I said, look, Barry, the more brands that get involved, because let's be honest, some kids like Puma, some don't, some like Nike, I don't know. The more choice that you can give adults and children with special needs, the better. So the more training shoe suppliers who can get on board, fabulous for us. And then we find out that eventually Nike do a football boot, so it is available. So they're the different things that we're trying to do in the background. It's not just all about, raising the profile of us and putting smiles on people's faces. There's some serious work that gets done in the background. So that's the level at that particular event at the Well. Yeah, but if this event comes off, this is a full-time job. And there's a huge expectations on my team who work in other jobs for them to come on board. So from a personal perspective, it would be a huge aspect. The sponsorship opportunities, you can only imagine. All those businesses that are linked with Manchester City Football Club, whether it be hotels and restaurants and all those people who, from a corporate social responsibility, would want to be associated with this. Plus, more importantly, the players bring in their cars and their collections. And I can't say too much, but there's some heavily connected people in the fashion world who are massive Manchester City fans who have a collection of Bugattis and other cars in their collection. So there's a lot of talk going in the background. So hugely exciting, but sometimes these things don't come off.
Yeah.
But that just gives you an idea of some of the stuff that we're working on in the background.
When I was a student in Manchester, I used to shop at the Asda that's just opposite the City Stadium, so I know exactly where you're talking about. You got the Velodrome. There's that sort of areas of just that's excuse me, perfect for that sort of thing, because it's kind of away from. Imagine you're trying to close Deansgate, for example. It's just never going to happen for all sorts of reasons. But it's sort of far enough away that it's not going to be. It seems realistic to me. Like you're in with a shot. I'd like to hope it comes off for you anyway.
Well, it's funny because Deansgate was obviously where they did it for the McLaren. So the argument is, and that's where the bus goes past and this, that, and the other. So I've got to have a strong case. But then the other alternative, which was option number 2, was Corporation Street, which is up where the National Football Museum is. Yes. So again, the National Football Museum would be a perfect venue. I've been to have a look at it, to have the static display there and do the loop, which is near the railway station. So I've tried to cover all 3 options. So even if Manchester City Football Club is a no, and Barry's telling me it's more likely to be a yes than a no, because you've just got to queue up and wait your turn to be heard. But even if it's not, then hopefully Manchester City Council will see there's a benefit behind doing this event. But I think from a sponsorship perspective, the creme de la creme would be to have it at Manchester City. Yeah. Because I say they've got their own infrastructure and their own roads in place, so we could do our own parade in there, etc., etc. So, that's just one of the other things that we're working on at the moment.
You will have no shortage of people who aren't United fans queuing up for the membership to help you there. I'd like to think that people.
It's funny because I remember when I worked for Metro Radio and we had corporate hospitality at Sunderland. I could never get my Newcastle customers to come and have corporate hospitality in Sunderland. The last time I'll ever being seen in that place is the only time is when we're playing them. You know what I mean? But it's an evening out, free drinks, free food. I don't care. I'm not going to this, that, and the other. So I'm wondering if Manchester City and Manchester United fans would put that all to one side for a great cause and a great reason to be collectively together.
That sounds like a challenge.
It does sound like a challenge, yeah.
The last thing we want is fighting in the car park, do we? So, a 300.
Baby steps.
I'm Sparta. So, but they're the types of things that you have to take into consideration, and maybe it's another thing that bring the city closer together with collaborations as well.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of access to things and, nice cars and things. Just, you've only got to spend 30 minutes in Wilmslow or Audley Edge on a Saturday to know that there is some serious cars floating around, in that part of the world. So, and it's a part of the world where people are, let's say that, I don't know how to put this without it sounding rude, but they just want to drive their cars around to be seen in them. They want to be seen to be wealthy, and they drive their cars through these places, just because. The first time I ever saw a Zonda on the road was in the Shell in Wilmslow. Just absolutely for no reason. It's because Zonda was just driving around in circles. Just whatever, just out to drive.
You can.
Yeah. So that you'll definitely pull the right sort of cars to there. I mean, not being unkind to Bridlington, but the sort of caliber of cars that are within, let's say, 20 miles of the Etihad. Just the sort of, you've got all the footballers from both football clubs, plus, that sort of Cheshire set and all the rest of it, all within driving distance. You've got all of that just right there. And I can if you get the venue, the cars aren't going to be a problem. They're going to flood in.
And there's a Bugatti dealer there, isn't it? I think it's Sittner who's Bugatti there.
So that's where I bought the McLaren from.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, there's some great performance garages, and there's lots of private garages there that do performance cars. So I think it's one of those huge opportunities for us to look at. Just Mark, if we can maybe talk about how you introduced us to Beaucliffe Hall and Jonathan Turner's place. Just amazing. You've done a few events there, haven't you? But we've got something big coming up there in November.
Yes, yeah. So we hosted our first event with Beaucliffe this January. It was our New Year meet, which I believe will be repeating again. And then my memory fails me. I think I I put you in touch with somebody there, and you've progressed it from there. But yeah, you've got. Was it this October or November?
It's 24th of November.
24th of November. Yeah.
So one of the things when Tiff first came, he was paid for by the company that I used to work for, a company called Superguard Paint Protection, and he was the brand ambassador for Superguard. So he came on board, and Dr. Andrew Chauvin, the chief race engineer for Mercedes-Benz, who I'd met through Kirk, through the Connie School at Yarm, heard about us and wanted to support us. And so Andrew Chauvin and Tiff turned up at this event at Wynyard Hall, and there was a black tie ball on the nighttime, motorsports themed. And both of them were too busy to become patrons because of their ongoing work. But they both stayed over, I stayed over, and at breakfast time, Tiff and Andrew came over to me and said, "You've created Goodwood 25 years ago, Paul. This event is absolutely amazing. And we're so sorry that we said that we were too busy, but we'd like to become patrons." So both of them came on board. Andrew Chauvin for James's 17th birthday said, "Oh, would you like to come down to the Petronas factory?" And I said, "Go on then, yeah. I'll see if my diary's free." So we go down as a family, and we're chatting away. James is, bless him, doubly incontinent, so he'd filled his pad and it stunk the whole of reception out, and the ladies there with the Febreze spraying it all. And then this guy taps you on the shoulder, and I turn on, there's Lewis Hamilton. "Paul, been waiting to meet you and your family. Where's James?" I said, "I'm sorry, he's just in the toilet." And James doesn't know who he is. So he gets Lewis to get in his wheelchair, and he's pushing him round, and Lewis spent half an hour with us, and it was absolutely amazing. And he gave us the front left wing flap of his winning Monza car, which was auctioned at the ball. And so I sort of developed the relationship, and then we got the plank of wood off his winning Hungarian car the following year. And then after that, they stopped giving the parts out because they become so valuable to them. So it was a very short brief. Those car magazines used to get where part one, you get this part and this, that, the other. Alexander's Prestige bought both those parts. And I said to Andrew North, I said, over the next 250 years, you'll have the full Formula One car. And then Tiff, as I said that we created this Goodwood. So I said to Tiff this year, after Mark had done the introduction to Beaucliffe, have you seen Bank of Dave?
Yes, I have.
I haven't. No.
It's amazing. True story. A little bit of sensationalism in it. But part of it was filmed at Beaucliffe Hall. And it's very much like a gentleman's club, isn't it? and they have a 900-member drivers club with high net worth individuals who have some stunning, amazing car collections. And so the thought process was, after Mark had done the introduction, I went down to see them. And knowing Jonathan Turner's a massive Goodwood fan and got an amazing car collection, so never watches TV. We pitched this idea about having Tiff Nadell come down to the Buccleuch Hall and asking these guys to support Smiles for Miles to become the next Goodwood up here. Because outside the M25, you really struggle to get anybody to show any interest at this neck of the woods. So what a better opportunity to have an evening with Tiff, and then Tiff talking to these people and saying, look, Sean, you've got an amazing car collection. I know you don't take it out for anybody, but if there was anybody you're going to bring your cars out for, would you do it for these guys? So we could very much have like a Buccleuch Hall Drivers Club section, and then have some of these amazing cars that can come out. So they agreed to do that. And then Jonathan Turner, being the great guy he is, said, I'll match any funding that you raise for the charity on the night. I mean, that wasn't expected. Do you know what I mean? So how one relationship through SC UK giving us a link into Buccleuch Hall and then buying into who we are as a brand and then developing from there. So it just again shows you those relationships of just sharing that conversation with somebody and saying, is it probably prudent to talk about the big city for next year that you guys are involved in?
Go for it, absolutely.
So there's only 2 cities in the northeast, so you guess which one it is. But we're working one well, and we've done quite a bit of work with them. We're doing the site visit on Tuesday, so hopefully I'll be able to reveal more soon, and I'm hoping it's a yes. But it's going to be based on past, present and future. So you'll find a lot of the members can be members of other clubs as well. So one of the other clubs that's relevant to us is the North East Supercar Owners Club, which have supported us at some of our events. So I was saying to Mark that I don't want to upset anybody in relation to getting them involved, but Mark said, look, we work very closely with Ryan and North East Supercar Owners Club, so collectively we'll look at the present part of that presentation, and I'm hoping that Alex from Aston Workshops will be the past. I can't say too much about this, but there's a very, very famous singer who's having his Aston Martin DB, I can't say which car it is, that's a classic, but having electric modifications done to it so it can be driven as an electric car. So the reality is that car could be the past, but also represent the future. Do you know, you talked about early on, Sean, about 2035.
These are extremes that people getting, having to go to get rid of ULEZ chargers, isn't it?
and I think looking about the electrification of cars in a greater concept is what's going to happen to the combustion engine as far as showing. Are the government going to allow you to take your classic car to a venue, but you can only do so many? How is that legislation going to come in place, or are these cars never going to be allowed on the road again and they're going to be traded to places, etc., etc.? So one of the ideas a lot of these people are doing is having this electric modification put on their classic car. The one question I would ask in relation to that is, does that devalue that original classic car? And it's got to, hasn't it? So if you've got a car that's maybe worth hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds in its original state, and then you put this electric modification to it, is that going to affect its value? Now this singer, who's a great guy, I would imagine most of us would love his music. I just said to the council, wouldn't it be great if he strums a couple of songs whilst he's driving around in his car? So again, dreaming big, why not? What's the worst this individual's going to turn around and say, I'm not available or I can't do it? So, but we're not shy in asking these individuals. So again, through Aston Workshops and their client, is we will be asking that question, and hopefully that individual won't turn and say, I'd love to. You might not do the singing part, but I'd love to get involved. So so that'll be our first city, and that probably helps us doing that in 2024 for Manchester, because you're going from a good sized city to a massive city, well, the biggest city in the northern area. So maybe, as I say, fate's making us do this as the next stage before we take on the likes of Manchester. But this city one will create the stability from a financial perspective, because motorsports has its costs, And Croft this particular year, the costs have gone up, so it was a lot more expensive to put the event on, and a lot of hard work goes into it for very little return for the charity at the end of the day. And we need to concentrate on bringing more sponsors on board and getting more marketing out there. I think losing those 10 to 12 weeks with my mum passing away took that focus away, but I'm determined now, quarter 4, October, November, December, and January, February, March, to get these sponsors on board.
So for the listeners, if you want to get involved with JPC, we'll put some information on how to get in contact with the charity in the description. So that goes out on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, if you head to our YouTube channel, we'll try and get something out on the socials about how you can. If you listen to this and you want to support JPC, there'll be some information on how you can do that, or you can reach out to any of us via the SCUK socials, and we'll pass your details on. Fabulous. or get Paul's details passed to you. However you want to do that, if you want to get involved, we'll make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got details on our website. Obviously, you've got your own dedicated website, JPC Specialist Motorsports.com.
Who designed that?
I don't know. Not sure.
He's not just in magazines now, Sean, is he? You know what I mean? This guy's got full of talent. He's just very, very modest about it. No, he's created a fabulous website that we're super proud of as well. Well done, Mark.
No problem. Yeah, there's that website. It's the details on our website. And obviously, all the information is available directly on the JPC site, but we will, whenever we are engaging with JPC, it's always splashed across our site and our socials. So members, keep an eye on your emails and everything that we'll be publicising next year with regards to what JPC might have going on.
Sure.
Can I just add to that? The other service that we've obviously been part of, the concept of it all is the purchasing of tickets for our paid for events, and the service that we get and the data that we are able to collect from that, which we're able to share with our sponsors as well. And basically your market share that you've got from a social media with Car Calendar as well, it all adds to making it saleable to sponsors and the likes.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're delighted to. Obviously, we're delighted to support the JPC brand across everything that we have going on at our end. But one thing that we really are focused on, certainly this year and next year, is drawing attention to the features that Car Calendar has to offer, and one of them is, I would say, hopefully considered by people, market-leading ticketing services that can be fully integrated into your website. It's available on Car Calendar directly in our app, but also on third-party websites like yourselves as well. So we're more than delighted to support it. And yeah, fingers crossed we'll onwards and upwards for the events next year as well. Excellent.
Before we sort of draw things to a close, there's something I just want to throw in, just off the basically apropos nothing. Right, that some of you might have noticed watching this, that there's a car on the table here. So this here is an incredible replica of Sean's R8. And this is amazing. But the reason this exists is because it was Sean's birthday very recently. It was something of a major milestone. So I just want to say happy birthday, sort of on behalf of SCUK, Car Calendar, and the sort of DriveLife podcast. And I want our listeners to join in and sort of wish you a happy 50th birthday. There is absolutely no way you're 50. You don't look 50. It's unbelievable to me to think that's the milestone you've just ticked past. But seriously, a happy birthday from me, from the podcast, and hopefully from our sort of wide listener base as well. So
thank you for throwing me a curveball.
Yeah, this is one of the best birthday presents I've ever seen anyone get anyone. So it's like a personalised car. It's really cool.
Awesome.
I'm super jealous.
And actually, it was created by Beck Wrap Squad, who obviously wrapped the car originally. So it's literally as good as it can be.
Yeah, it's super accurate. Even down to the colour of the wheels, the logos on it. It's really awesome. So it's been out on the table just as like a little Easter egg for the whole podcast. But
50, but feel like 5.
Yeah. It's an awesome thing.
Thank you.
And happy birthday.
I would also like to add that we'll soon get rid of those youthful looks once you see how many events SCUK has got planned for the next few years. They're quite a stress. So
you can join me in their ever-increasing grey club.
I did say to him as well, I said, there's another big perk. I said, gone are the 18 to 30 holidays, but he's now can become a Saga lout. He can go on Saga holidays and he can be the youngest one there.
Yeah.
Did you get a free Parker pen from Michael Winner? Or is it a radio these days? I don't know.
Welcome to the DriveLife comedy show. Thank you.
Right. I think we'll wrap it up there. So as ever, thank you very much for watching, listening. However you're listening to this, thank you for listening for a start. And please give us a like, share it if you want to share it. But if you could hit subscribe on the YouTube channel, that makes more of a difference than you could possibly imagine to us at this stage. So please do that. I don't know why sort of the YouTube thing to ask for a share or a subscription, but really we're sort of trying to grow this, get more great people on. You get more stories, more really interesting people like Paul coming on and talking to us, and so it'll help us out a lot for literally no cost to you whatsoever. So thank you very much if you've already done that. If you haven't done that, please give it some the no seconds it takes to give it a click. So thank you very much, and we'll wrap up with our traditional question to the audience. So, Paul, have you got the question that you'd like to leave our
I think it's based, Mark, off a previous question that somebody must have raised. Is it all right to undertake somebody who's hogging the middle lane? Can I just talk, not just for me personally, because it seems to be every time I go on a journey, the amount of people undertaking, and it's not just middle lane hoggers, it's people who are just deciding that they're not prepared to wait any longer and will use any tactics whatsoever. It's becoming really, really bad. And I've seen, as my job as an ex-traffic police officer, the devastation that's caused by undertaking is, do people agree that undertaking is acceptable nowadays or not? Regardless of whether it's a middle lane hogger or not, or do they, like me, agree that it's really, really dangerous?
Okay. Well, I look forward to there's probably raging comment wars over there.
Remember that I'm an ex-traffic cop, not a current one.
Ex-traffic cop, you won't get any knocks on your doors for answering, honestly. But yeah, thanks very much for listening. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. Looking for your next car event, car club or automotive venue? Find it with Car Calendar. Discover hundreds of upcoming events, car clubs and car venues on the UK's biggest car events platform. Search by location and radius, favourite your events, buy event tickets with ease and follow your favourite clubs and venues to be the first to hear about their upcoming events. For event organisers, you can list events, clubs and venues free of charge, sell tickets directly in the app and track performance of your event all in one place. Available online and in your app store. Just search Car Calendar.